an update on the economic development, the master plan committee?
Yeah, so there is a draft that went out, and the master plan committee is now looking for comments from the town. So take a look. If there are any comments or questions you have, then great. Otherwise, I'm cautiously optimistic that maybe this one will get implemented, and we'll see what happens. But there is, hopefully soon there will be a new master plan in place.
Wonderful. Yeah, I'm going to have to read that and see if there's anything in there about housing and some level of density, because I've been going to a couple of economic development events throughout the state, and if it's one thing I hear, I hear all the time, there's a housing need in Massachusetts, and it's an economic development issue. So hopefully that's there in the master plan. Any other reports from committees? Committee members?
Nope.
No. Excellent. So I think we're getting a report from our project manager on the Energy and Environmental Affairs grant on the Route 9 wastewater study.
I am more than glad to report, however, and I will be very honest, there still has not been a contract completed for Paul Pazinski. There is an issue now that came up, which we never had with the downtown, in terms of a contractor providing a $1 million liability policy for a $4,000 contract. I sent 3 emails today to Mark Purple asking for an explanation. Paul is where I talk to Paul regularly. Paul is working with his insurance company to see what is involved and what would a contract be. An insurance company will only do a policy for a year. His contract only goes till the end of June, and it's for $4,000. I'm more than glad to share any of those emails that I have. It's an issue with the town. A liability policy was never required for the first time around with the downtown grant. I asked the question, which I have still not gotten a response back for, is what other Judy Barrett was not required, or she was, they dealt with her individually. Marik and I, when we first worked with hiring Judy Barrett, that was never an issue that came up. This has kind of delayed the whole thing. And that's where it stands. Paul still does not have a contract.
Is there a specific concern? I mean, is it because is Paul going to be like out there poking around doing things? Is that what their concern is as far as insurance?
The contract specifically states what Paul is going to be doing, essentially sitting in the Board of Health office, pulling the records. I actually raised the issue of, if this is a contract that is required for any contractors who have contracts with the town, well, then why doesn't it apply to recording secretaries? And I haven't gotten any response.
Claire, a question on that. Is that $1 million liability requirement in the contract part of something that came from the state as part of the contract from EEA, or is this a municipally led insurance request?
No, I mean, this isn't our first rodeo with this. So we didn't have any of these things the first time around. And it is kind of a blanket thing where response that came back is, oh, well, the insurance company requires anybody who has a contract to provide liability insurance, to provide automobile insurance, to provide all the naming the town as a beneficiary if there's a problem. So I have copied the selectmen today on 3 emails to say.
So, I think last meeting, Marika, you were in the office and you were just going to go try to meet Mark face to face. I'm not sure if that happened, but I think it seems like I think dutifully so, I probably exhausted the email route. So maybe just like, can we try to like just book a half-hour meeting with Mark, just try to sit down and just try to push it through? Because it doesn't look like email is working, whether he's inundated or what. I don't know. I can't speculate, but I think email is just not proving to be effective. So maybe we should try.
At the last meeting, I was waiting for getting a response from Mark that day of the meeting, which was April 29th. I did receive a response from Mark.
Okay.
So that was fine. Actually, Marika didn't even have to go and talk to him. After about 3 days, he had said that he would provide a response that day. Okay, we did that. I think that it's a little bit difficult to figure out what is going on unless you read the emails. This is not an EDC issue. This is an issue that is kind of popped up, which didn't come up before, and I'm trying to figure out why.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what we're trying to protect against. So unless this is something that is a policy that has been a policy all along, and for some reason it was previously just an oversight, which is why we didn't utilize it with Judy Barrett or with other contractors. I mean, Claire, you've been a contractor with the town. You are a contractor with the town, right? So either, there was an oversight previously and they've, been advised that they now need to adhere to this policy. And if that's the case, then, okay, that's not an unreasonable answer, but I'm just, liability insurance, I work not in insurance, but I work in real estate law. So, I'm involved with some liability insurance issues. And it's typically, to protect against like something happening that you're doing. So, usually, you would want it if Paul was going on to other people's property to look at septic issues. That makes sense that he would carry liability insurance in case he damaged something, and then the town is protected. But if he's just sitting at his desk, I'm not sure what the risk is unless somebody sues him for something that he puts in a report or like that. But that's not really how that's
You're absolutely right. And Paul
that's like professional insurance. That's different than liability insurance.
Yeah, liability insurance essentially protects.
Is this a policy that they instituted across the board, Claire, or just for Paul?
No, because quite frankly,
I didn't know if this was a new policy since they had some issues with, that pocket park, for instance, or things like that. So maybe they're just being more cautious. I don't want to.
I mean, look at
if this is applied across the board, that's fine. Just from our experience, that hasn't been the case up to now. So if Mark says this is either has been our policy and we're just enforcing it better now, or this is our new policy and every contract that we sign, we're getting this, then maybe that makes sense. But again, liability insurance just seems like an odd fit for this, from my perspective. I don't know. I could be wrong. I just feel like there's something missing here. I don't know. Something just doesn't quite make sense to me.
Bingo. So, okay, so here's what I can do. I can forward you the emails that I sent. I sent, because this doesn't have anything to do really with the EDC. This is a grant that was given to the town. I sent an email today and I said, what does it take? And I copied all 5 selectmen. This was the 3rd time I copied them on an email. What does it take to get a response? If you think about it, if they're saying that this is for all contractors, then it means that anybody who is a 1099 contractor has to have liability insurance. And you know what? That includes the recording clerks. So
Yeah.
something is not making sense. It takes, I don't know what it takes to get an answer.
And so Paul's scope of work is literally looking at files at the Board of Health Department. Is that right?
Excuse me?
Sorry, Paul's scope of work is literally sitting in the Board of Health office and looking at files.
Right. So that in other words, what he's doing is the pre-work that an engineering firm would have to do, and anybody who's a civil engineer or works along this line. But I mean, we could pay them the $300 an hour to do the same thing. Paul's doing it for a lot less. And the other thing is that there is nobody with the expertise of
Oh yeah, it makes perfect sense. I mean, he already knows it, and he knows the town. He knows where the records are. No, I think it makes sense. Yeah, it's just frustrating that it's been held up for this long because of something that we're not clear about. That I think we just need to hear from Mark. You know,
So
what are they trying to protect against? What's the authority that's requiring this?
So I think we can. I think we all agree that we don't understand what the reason for this is. We can try to get at the reason. I think we should maybe not do email as the next best way. And I also just noticed that joining in the attendees is Sam Stivers.
Oh, good. Maybe
as a select board person, if Sam is willing, perhaps he can offer his point of view. But I do think, just in terms of exhausting this issue, Claire, thank you for your tenacity on this. We all agree that this is it's a conundrum. It's a mystery. Why? So let's try to get at the heart of it through a different outreach tactic other than email.
Yeah, maybe you can give him a call, Rob.
Yeah.
Instead of a meeting if needed be.
Yeah, no, we need to get moving on this, and we need to get the information so we can take those next steps. So I'll give him a call tomorrow, and it's Paul's $1 million liability.
I can send you, Rob, if you're going to give him a call, you need the background information, which I will send you.
Yes, please do. I'm going to have.
There's a trail of email messages, which started about a week ago. So I will send you that whole trail.
Thank you for the tenacity on this, Claire.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's we've got to get moving on this. Okay, so we're kind of in a holding pattern on that, but what Paul is doing will kind of provide a basis for those next steps for the EEA grant. So that's, I guess, the second part of the agenda item, next steps. Anything else you want to add, Claire?
Yeah. Just so that you know, I mean, there is a whole detailed, I think there's like 9 different bullet points in it of what Paul would actually be doing. This was figured out to be $4,000, which would be paid for by the grant, and you know, it's just I think the $4,000 at what he was charging. He felt that was enough. Now, if it turns out that he's going to have to pay for liability insurance or to whatever degree that they want, and this will be covered, Rob, in that, you know, and I'll just send it to the whole committee. He's going to have to change his rate because this wasn't figured into it before. Because what happens is an insurance company will quote you your insurance rate for a year. His contract is only until the end of June for $4,000. So
it might be, I don't know enough about it, but it might be able to be canceled and prorated. I don't know.
Well,
But I hear your point.
I talked to him about that today, Julie. Thank you. Because I said to him, well, if it turns out that, after 4 months, it it gets canceled, he doesn't have any more work. Because don't forget, he has to protect himself. So what is the prorated amount? And how does that actually work out? Because you can we went through a couple different scenarios in terms of how he can protect himself.
Well, I think there are two things that we need to do. One, I need to talk with Mark, give him a call tomorrow. Claire, if you could send me that email backup, that would be great. We'd also have to find out what the cost to Paul was going to be. Because if there is that added cost in there, that is not part of the grant. Well, once again, there is a match required from the town. And I do believe we have some extra money in our contract services. So if we need to, we can go and dip into that contract services, give us part of that match, and take it that way, just so we can get moving on this.
Yeah, but keep in mind, guys, the way the breakdown is, because it crosses 2 fiscal years, the way the breakdown sets up is we, so to speak, need to spend. I'm not sure that that's the way to put it, but EEA said there's $12,000 that'll be allocated for the first phase of this, so to speak, which ends at the end of June. Okay, so you take $4,000 for quality. That $4,000 in the draft contract only includes him looking at all of the Route 9 parcels and that kind of stuff. Essentially just making it absolutely clear to the engineering firm when they take it, okay, this is what exists there now. This is what was included in the SEA report. This is what's still accurate. He's doing all that work. This was a big concern when the selectmen were talking about who to have as a project manager. And they said, we need to have somebody with wastewater and all that kind of experience. Absolutely, this is the guy. Okay, so then the other part of it is, which would be in another written grant, would be help with writing an RFP. Now, there might be, some other people within town. Unfortunately, if you have a couple engineers on a different boards or committees, which we do, that doesn't really, that doesn't, they could help and review and stuff, but that does not go against the match.
Oh, okay. Well, we have to come up with a match for this. So I'm going to, unless someone tells me otherwise, if the EDC uses some of our contract services funds from our budget to help move this forward, that counts towards our match. So if we need to, in order to get Paul working on his $4,000 contract from the town, use some of our funds, that is going to be part of the match. So unless someone tells me otherwise, we need to make sure we get him working as soon as possible.
Because there's another part to it. As he's sitting there, Marek and I put together kind of like a template so that the information that he collects parcel by parcel will be clearly identified. Parcel ID number, who the owner is, where's the address, etc. And then he goes in and he writes his notes. One of the things that was going to be part of the in-kind services was Marika typing up all of that stuff. As we all know, time is running out on Marika.
Yes. So if that is the case, then we can identify perhaps there's another clerk at town hall that has and can do this after hours and wants the extra hourly rate. I think we'll adjust that. But what we need to do is get Paul moving forward on this quickly. So if you can send me the information so I can give Mark a call tomorrow and figure out what's going on there, we can at least take that next step. Because regardless of Marika leaving June 1st, if Paul is not collecting that data, there's not going to be anything to type up anyway. So we need to take that next step. So if you can send me that information, we will tackle that issue first with Mark and then move on to the next one. So that sounds like that's our next step. So Claire, if you could send me that information, that would be great. Next up on the agenda is the coordinator's report for the Reliant Medical meeting and grant application.
Yeah, very quickly, the Reliant Medical meeting is scheduled for May 17th at 10 a.m. at the townhouse. So I have several confirmations, but it will be a confidential meeting. Can you hear me? And the grant application, talking about the one-stop community growth grant, I've shared it with all the boards and committees for feedback, and I've requested they give me a response or feedback before May 25th, so we have time to submit it before June 1st. So that's the update. Any questions?
Nope, I think that's great that we're going after the community one stop again. And I think I'd reiterate that is something that is of importance to the administration, EOHED, and that going forward, we should continue to take a look at the one stop for potential applications that are in part of the development continuum, from the zoning plans, site plans, to things like infrastructure. So we should always keep that on our radar screen, because that is a key initiative for this administration.
I have a question about the Reliant meeting.
Yes.
Marika, do you know who you have confirmed from the select board who's attending so far?
I have Sam Stivers, and I believe Chelsea was not able to make it for the 10 a.m., so she's trying to find another select person to join. So she's forwarded that to, made that decision, I guess forwarded that information to the chair. So the chair will decide who to ask.
Okay, thanks.
But there'll be 2 select board members.
Great.
Yeah.
Excellent. And I gather we have some other members of staff. The planner will be joining us as well.
I've invited the assessor who's confirmed. The town planner is coming, and she said she would invite maybe a planning board member to be there as well. And I've invited the building commissioner. So it'll be a full house.
No, I think that's excellent. And once again, I think it reinforces one of the important things that I believe, which is collaboration between all the different boards and staff. So, without sounding like I'm patting ourselves on the back, or Marika, once again, saying what a great job you're doing, coordinating this with the other staff throughout town hall is important. That's something that's important to the EDC, and a very important role for the EDC coordinator. So I want to congratulate you on that, and hopefully that flows through to the other boards and committees that are out there. So thank you.
Actually, acting like, other EDCs, commissions around, that actually have planning, select board members, administrators, things like that on their EDC. What a concept. Sorry.
No,
Really bad.
no, it is true, and I do like the fact that we're trying to get people involved, which is a great way to transition to the next agenda item, which is a discussion about appointing liaisons to other boards and committees. Um, I think Alan, maybe this had been a suggestion of yours.
Yes.
Okay.
I know you weren't at the last meeting, Rob, so just as a 30-second recap, it seemed very recently, although I know it's ongoing, but very recently that several other boards and committees were meeting with business that in some way, shape, or form would intersect or be of interest to EDC. And so I thought it would be good for us to be more apprised of it. And then, of course, we do have members of EDC who sit on other boards, like Mr. John Wood, who often will bring reports of things like SHOPSI. We've got a member on our master plan committee, Julie. So we have some of them already covered. So I thought for the ones we don't have covered, it would be good to sit on those. It was TBD whether we assign, volunteer, or rotate. But I think probably no reason to change what John and Julie are already doing. They're already serving us in dual capacities. So for the ones that are left, it would probably be no surprise for you all to hear that I would like to volunteer to be the planning board liaison. So if there's no objection to that, I can take that one. But if someone else wants it, I'm very happy to share and split. So
I'm happy to let you take that because I actually had one that I was interested in.
okay.
In particular, that was the Community Preservation Committee. Okay. The Community Preservation Committee is dedicated to three things: open space, historic preservation, and housing. And I think housing is an important element of economic development. And I've not seen a housing project using CPA funds come through in the past 10 years, maybe 11. It's been a long time. So if people are okay, I'd like to kind of volunteer to be the liaison for the CPC.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good one to be involved with from our perspective. I think that's a great idea.
Yep, agreed. So I guess that leaves select board hanging out there, and I'm not sure where all the ones meet on a regular basis. I don't know if we need to decide now. I think we've already made progress. We've assigned 2 net new ones. We are hopefully confirming John and Julie to the other respective boards that they're on.
Well, the master plan committee is going to wrap up at some point also. I mean, and again, I don't think that the appointee needs to go to every single meeting necessarily. Selectman does definitely, you know, I wouldn't want to be assigned to go to every single board.
No.
But to the extent somebody's responsible for monitoring an agenda, yes, and if there's something that's relevant to us, or if we're being discussed, or one of our projects is being discussed, making sure somebody's there to represent.
Yes, thank you for that clarification. That's more what I meant. Not every single one, and then maybe not even the duration, just perhaps the portion that's relevant to the business that could intersect what EDC does. So.
No, I think that's excellent, and the thing also can be, you know, a conversation with you know, the chair or things like that. I would point out that Andrew Dennington had given me a call and said, "Hey, Rob, let's meet for a cup of coffee." And so he is a select board member who actually did outreach to the EDC chair to just get a little bit of information. I appreciated that.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, he's not able to always participate in our meetings, but at least he's somewhat knowledgeable about what's going on, which once again, I think is something that everyone can appreciate. So and the thing is, we can work our way through who it goes through. It's not torture. It goes through the select board agenda and maybe sees if there are things that are of interest and we can participate. So I think that's a really good idea, and
So perhaps because we don't have the rest of our committee here, we're missing a couple of members. Would it make sense to jot down the sort of commitments that we made at this meeting and then bring that more complete but still incomplete list to the next meeting, and then see if there's other folks who want to raise their hand and volunteer, and then we can try to finish rounding it out at the next meeting?
Yeah, I also want to think if there are any other committees that, like, for example, I think Trails Committee is one that it probably doesn't come up often, but that I think is one that, you know, we definitely have seen that we have some overlapping interests with. So to the extent, maybe they're not talking about EDC, but maybe they're talking about trails, you know, and connectivity and things like that, that are, you know, there might be a particular project that's important to us just to keep a monitor on.
That was one I was particularly thinking about, because there's a connection of the downtown to the walking trails. And if we want to get people out of their cars and walking toward downtown to go to, you know, the businesses that we have there, I think it's a good thing. So yeah, and there might be some things that you know, the historic commission might have other things as well that could kind of factor in. So
yeah, no, I think that's another good one too.
Yeah, I think it's good to we've got 2 commitments for them, and we can I think we can leave this as a discussion item for next meeting as well, to see if we can have other people wanting to volunteer. Okay, next up on the agenda is the administrative business, the approval of the meeting minutes from April 29th, 2022.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the minutes of April 29th, 2022.
Second.
Okay. A question, John. Can I vote on the minutes?
Even if you weren't there? Yes, you can.
Okay, because I wasn't sure if with only 3 people voting whether or not it'd be quorum enough, but since I can vote, that's excellent. Okay, so I've had a motion and a second. Any discussion, updates? Nope. Okay, so I'm going to go for the approval as I see them on the screen. John?
Aye.
Julie?
Yes.
Alan?
Yes.
And Rob, yes. Passes unanimously. Thank you. Do we have any unfinished business?
I just had a question, Rob, and I don't know what made me think of it recently, but I know back a few months ago, we had talked about sort of resetting some priorities and things that we want to do. And one of the ideas that I think you brought up was this idea of, you know, of solar projects, revenue generating parking spaces on public town property. And not to put you on the spot but I really liked that idea. And it's, you know, it's certainly something that's very timely. I'm seeing it come up in lots of areas. And, you know, again, it's something that, as you pointed out, could be a revenue driver for the town, or at least a money saver. And as part of our mission to, you know, to help bring down the residential tax rate, anything that is a net positive, I think is great, and an environmental positive as well. You know, I think it checks a lot of boxes.
Yes, and I think Marika might be able to bring a little bit here. When we had discussed this, there was someone working on behalf of the town that was taking a look at that. That was a long time ago, and we haven't seen anything happen.
Is that an employee or somebody we had hired out to investigate it? Or
Marika, can you?
So yeah, I had spoken to John Parent about it, and I think maybe I can revisit that topic of discussion and see what's happening.
So and the thing is, although John is taking a look at that, one of the things that I happen to believe in, and it might just be me, but I'm a big proponent of solar car canopies in parking lots. a couple of reasons. One, for those people who would say it's going to ruin the character of the town, it's a parking lot. It's asphalt. It's not going to hurt the parking lot. If you don't lose any parking spaces, if the cars themselves are covered in the wintertime and the sun and the rain, you don't lose anything from that. There are consultants out there who will take a look at town-owned properties and those parking lots and do some analysis about whether or not it makes sense, and then come to the town with an idea about the lease rates, the construction, and things like that. I'm perfectly happy to talk to a consultant to see if they would come to the town. Like any of those consultants, they make money when the project happens, so there would be no upfront cost. So if the EDC will give me the go-ahead, I've got a couple people I can talk to see if they can do that for us.
So you're saying a consultant sort of works on a contingency basis, so they would give you the information, and then, you know, they make profit if we go forward and close a sale, which we would then have to present to the Board of Selectmen for approval. And I don't know, what is that? Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. My only other thought on that is, and I know I've, you know, financially, because I've looked into solar for our house personally, and, you know, I've done some research on that, and financially it's typically better in the long run to own rather than to lease. I don't know if that's true, you know, but also that means there's upfront costs. There's leasing, you don't have the upfront costs, but over time it's less financially. And then, you know, maybe especially for the town, there might be benefits to leasing because then you don't own it and then you're not responsible for the equipment. So maybe that makes more sense, but I just wanted to raise that.
Yeah, so the way my understanding of this, and this is coming from a couple of years ago and the research that I had done, the maintenance and all of that is taken care of by the company that you bring in. The solar company actually pays to lease the land or the rooftop, so the town gets money that way. And then rather than paying taxes, they do a pilot based upon the amount of energy that is produced by the solar, which they then sell to the grid. So it's that combination of ground lease for the, you know, let's call it the car canopies, plus the energy that's being created is how much they pay to the town. Usually on the solar, the useful life of those things is 20 or 25 years. That's usually the contract time. And, you know, you basically look at that as a yearly payment from them to the town for that particular use. Now that's simplifying it greatly, but that's how we could potentially, one, make an improvement for going a little bit greener, and then also help us from a fiscal standpoint, because if we have an awful lot of empty parking lots or parking lots that do not have trees near them that could collect that solar, that could work. And again, there are also the schools where solar could be as well.
Yeah, especially when we're talking about potentially construction of new schools and things like that. Okay.
But I can just, why don't I do this? Why don't I talk to a couple of the people that I know and see if that's something that they could provide for us as just an educational element, and maybe invite them to talk with the committee about what could be done, and we'll see if we choose to move forward on it.
Okay.
Nice.
Cool. Because I definitely think there's so much more that we could do from an environmental standpoint. You know, economic development can and should be as sustainable as possible. And those things that we can do to, one, help the finances of the town, but also make a commitment long-term to things that will benefit not only us, but children as well is, I think, a good thing. So I'll run with that a little bit. Okay, do we have any new business?
I have two things. They both might be very quick, and I wasn't sure if it was technically new business or not. But with Marika sadly leaving us for different pastures, how does that replacement search start? Is it through Mark Purple because Marika is an employee of the town? Do we have a say in either egging it on and accelerating it or anything at all, or is it truly in the town's hands?
Yes,
Yes, it's in the town's hands.
it's in the town's hands. Yes, we can accelerate. Yes, everything. I lived through a couple of these.
Okay.
So if you want to start spreading the word, first up, we just got to
job. That's the one thing. I think the town's role is we need an open job posting with a job description. So do we know if that's been done yet?
No, and that's what I was planning to do myself this week. Is to write a replacement job description and kind of send it and ask them to post it.
Yeah, and Marika, you can probably ask, and for the previous one as at least the starting base. I'm sure you've made it your own in so many ways. I'm sure you'll have some tweaks to make to it, but as a starting point, so you're not reinventing the wheel. I'm sure you can find the old one somewhere. I probably have it somewhere. But historically, we've interviewed the candidates and made a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen, and then they choose. And usually, just like getting appointed, I think, if you go in front of the board and they ask you questions.
So another thing, sorry, I mean, I'm not, but this is, I guess, for the future. And I kind of discussed it with Vanessa as well. And I know the town is hesitant to hire full-time employees because of the whole pension and insurance, extra costs.
Yeah.
I think it makes sense to hire someone full-time for economic development and then be a grant coordinator at the same time, because this for especially the one-stop grant application, it's going to come by every year. And I'm not sure if anyone has thought about who's going to coordinate it, basically. So that's one thought I shared with Vanessa.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's great because, it seems, and maybe I'm wrong, but, we've done such a great job of getting grants and sort of getting out of our little silo of this is just what we do and looking outward and getting grants. And I think it's even inspired some other boards and committees to start to look into some grants as well. But maybe I'm wrong and I don't want to disparage anyone, but I don't remember that happening in other boards and committees before we started doing it just a few years ago. So, and there's money available out there for so many things that affect Economic Development Committee, but so many other things, particularly right now, that could be good for the town in lots of different ways. Everything is particularly in areas of conservation, environmental issues, and economic and housing, and all these things that we know are issues that we're facing. So I think, that there's a reasonable pitch for that, and maybe we even, as a committee, make a recommendation for the board to do that. I don't know, that would help.
Marika, I might also mention to Vanessa when you speak with her that up to 5% of the funds collected by CPC can be used for administrative purposes. So that if we did want to bring someone on full-time for economic development and other associated tasks, you could actually use money collected by the community and through the Community Preservation Act to actually have that as a secondary job. And that is a definitive revenue stream. No community that has adopted the CPC the Community Preservation Act has ever opted back out. So if you were thinking about ways in which to find some money to pay for someone to do multiple things for the town, like write the grants, like manage the grants, and do economic development. The 5% of the CPC funds being collected, being used for administration can help defer that salary. And also, because there's an economic development element to it, i.e. housing and potentially open space and the connection of trails, I think it would be a good fit. So that's just one thing to add into the mix if they want to consider that.
Yeah, and I think there's such a good argument that the return on investment for, we've shown that the funds that we can bring in to do the projects we want to do without having to turn to the taxpayers for it is, I think that's a really compelling argument.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, so Alan, I think that was the first one on new business.
Yeah, the second one, I mentioned it in the past, and I admittedly did not know if we addressed it or discarded it, but it actually ties together that something John said at the top of the meeting. Although I think you kind of said it in jest, but I think it works. Is reaching out, if whether it's a bi-monthly cup of coffee or something, but to the other EDC either coordinators or chairs, so essentially the other Robs or the other Marikas in our touching towns, and just seeing what they're doing, seeing how often they meet, seeing what grants they're going after, seeing just basically almost a peer network, because maybe there's an idea or two that we can learn or borrow from them, or something we can share with them as well, or if the time is right to partner on something. I just think it is quite literally a free resource, and it just might help us out. And if it's not fruitful after a couple of meetings, it's pretty easy to disband, But I just wanted to mention it to see if it's something that we think might be interesting. If we do, I would even volunteer to try to reach out to who those people are and try to strike up the first of those meetings.
Yeah, we used to do that like a long time ago when we first got together. I remember meeting with the economic development coordinator in Westboro and Ashland. Like we met with several, and I don't think it intentionally fell away, but I think some of our priorities several years ago were a little bit more regionally based. Like there was a time when we were trying to focus on transportation matters more, and that kind of went by the wayside because we weren't really making any progress, and then we started focusing more internally. But I think that's a great idea, just to, that can't hurt to have that kind of collaboration.
Just wanted to point out that the whole micro enterprise grant was done regionally. So
that's right.
Who is the economic development director for Ashland? Basically was coordinating that, and so we used to meet all the via Zoom though, all the economic development coordinators every month.
Okay.
But I think it's a great idea to kind of and I did speak to several of them, but I think it's a great idea to start meeting in person and building that relationship. I can give you.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'll reach out to you. It sounds like we have that contact information. So,
I'll give you.
Great. All right. That was it. Those were my two items. I'm not sure if anyone else has anything else.
No, Alan, I'm glad you're doing that. My role in my job is to meet with them anyway, and I'm trying to like separate those. So when I'm talking with them about what they're doing and what my organization that I work for can do for them, I want to keep that separate from Southborough. So I appreciate you doing that. So wonderful. Thanks for bringing those two pieces of new business forward. I suppose we're opening up to a public comment. We've got two attendees in the audience, Marcy and Sam. Would either of you be interested in saying anything? I do not see any hands raised, so I'm going to assume that we're all set. It appears like our next meeting is scheduled for Friday, May 27th at 8:15. I think we've spoken about an awful lot, and I think one of the things that I would like to make sure that we have on the next agenda is that further discussion about liaisons with other boards and committees for the other members of the EDC to see if they want to participate and do stuff. And I do know that we're gonna take care of stuff with Mark tomorrow. Hopefully we can get in touch with him about what's happening. So unless there's anything else that I've forgotten, it looks like we've gone through the agenda and spoken about an awful lot. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I heard them both at the same time. So one was a move by Julie, one was a second by Alan.
Correct.
Without any discussion, I'm going to go around as I see them on my screen. John?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Alan?
Yes.
Rob, yes. We are adjourned, and we will have our next meeting on Friday, May 27th at 8:15.
Great.
Excellent. Everyone go watch the Bruins game.
Everyone have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Take care, guys.